The performance isn't over. That was the rumor. It moved in whispers through back channels and encrypted forums, through late-night meetings in smoke-choked rooms where men with soft hands made hard decisions. Abigail had become myth in less than a year, an urban legend stitched together from redacted police reports, burned buildings, and bodies drained of more than just blood. The official story was a gas leak. Or a cartel feud. Or a private security operation gone wrong. But the unofficial story was simpler. She had danced. Now, in the heart of Prague's forgotten quarter, beneath a skyline bruised by storm clouds, something old had begun to stir again. The opera house had been abandoned since the Velvet Revolution. Once gilded and revered, it now rotted in dignified silence. Its grand facade was cracked, marble-chipped and blackened by soot. The tall arched windows stared blindly at the street. The city had tried to demolish it twice. Both times, workers refused to return after accidents, falls from scaffolding, tools turning in hands, shadows moving where nothing should. Tonight, the doors were open. Not to the public. To predators. A convoy of black SUVs slid silently along the curb, engines purring before dying in unison. 12 figures stepped out, dressed in matte tactical gear, faces hidden behind low-profile masks. They moved with the quiet efficiency of people accustomed to violence. At their center walked Leon Varga. Tall, broad-shouldered, ex-military with a permanent crease between his brows, Leon didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in contracts, objectives, and getting paid. The underground syndicate funding this mission had promised him a sum large enough to disappear anywhere in the world. All he had to do was retrieve an artifact. They called it the Veil Relic, a blackened music box rumored to predate the opera house itself. According to the intelligence packet, the relic was tied to anomalous events involving a juvenile female entity. Leon had skimmed that part. Thermal scans, he asked into his comm. Cold, replied Mira Kovac, their tech specialist, voice crisp in his ear. No visible heat signatures inside. Good. We move. The main doors groaned open as if protesting their touch. Dust swirled in the beams of their mounted lights. The lobby yawned before them, vast and decaying. A chandelier hung overhead like a skeletal corpse, its crystals long shattered. Torn velvet drapes clung to balconies above, faded from crimson to rust. The air smelled wrong. Not just mold and rot. Iron. Leon signaled the team to spread out. Boots echoed against marble floors, each step ricocheting up toward the domed ceiling painted with flaking frescoes of angels and muses. Someone muttered a curse under their breath. Feels like a tomb, one of the mercenaries said. It is, Mira replied quietly. In a way. They moved toward the auditorium. The double doors parted to reveal the grand stage. Even in decay, it was magnificent. Rows of broken seats cascaded down toward the orchestra pit. The stage curtain, though moth-eaten, still clung to its rails. And center stage, lit by a single, inexplicable spotlight, sat a black music box. Leon stopped. Who powered that light? He demanded. No external source detected, Mira said, voice tighter now. There shouldn't be electricity here. The spotlight flickered once. Then steadied. The music box began to play. A delicate waltz spilled into the cavernous room. The notes were clear, impossibly pure. It wasn't coming through speakers. It was real. Mechanical. Close. Hold positions, Leon ordered, pulse quickening despite himself. The melody twisted, slowed. Somewhere high above, in the shadowed balconies, something moved. One of the men lifted his rifle. Contact at 9. His words cut off in a wet, choking sound. A body dropped from the balcony, hitting the aisle with a sickening crack. The team wheeled around, guns raised. There was no one there. Just their fallen comrade. His throat had been opened with surgical precision. No hesitation marks. No defensive wounds. Blood pooled beneath him in a dark halo. The music continued. Leon's rational mind scrambled for explanation. A hidden sniper. A trapdoor. Someone unseen in the rafters. Eyes up, he barked. Another scream. This one from the stage. They spun. One of their own was being dragged backward across the floor, by nothing. His fingers clawed at the wood, nails splintering as he vanished into the shadows of the wings. Gunfire erupted. Muzzle flashes strobed against peeling gold leaf and cracked plaster. Silence answered them. The waltz stopped. For a heartbeat, everything held still. Then applause echoed softly through the theater. Slow. Measured. Mocking. A figure stepped into the spotlight. Small. Pale. Barefoot. She wore a once white ballet dress, now stiffened with old stains. Dark hair fell in careful waves over her shoulders. Her eyes, impossibly ancient in a child's face, surveyed the room with calm appraisal. Abigail. But different. There was no frenzy in her expression. No uncontrolled hunger. Only purpose. Good evening, she said softly, her accent lilting and strange. You're late. One of the mercenaries fired. The bullet struck her square in the chest. She did not flinch. Instead, she tilted her head, as if disappointed. You didn't read the program. She moved. Too fast to follow. In less than a second she was before the shooter. Her hand rested gently on his cheek, almost tender. Then she twisted. Bone snapped. He crumpled. Panic fractured the team. Formation dissolved into chaos as they fired wildly. But she was already among them, a blur of white and red, her movements precise, graceful, even. Each kill was efficient. Intentional. A cut across the femoral artery. A hand through the sternum. A whisper in someone's ear before silence swallowed them. Leon backed toward the aisle, trying to regroup. This isn't possible, he muttered. Abigail turned toward him, blood flecked across her skin like stage makeup. Oh, it is, she said. The spotlight widened, illuminating the carnage. Act 1, she murmured. Begins. Behind her, the curtain slowly began to rise, though no mechanism pulled it. Beyond it lay not backstage darkness, but a corridor lit by candlelight. A path. An invitation. Leon realized then, with cold clarity, that this had never been an extraction. It was an audition. And they had already failed. Abigail smiled, small fangs glinting. Run, she said sweetly. It makes the music better. The candles flickered. The doors slammed shut behind them. And somewhere deep in the opera house, the waltz began again. Leon ran. Not out of panic, he would never allow himself that word, but out of calculation. The stage was compromised. The auditorium had become a slaughterhouse. Survival required movement. Behind him, boots pounded against warped wood and crushed velvet. Of the 12 who had entered the opera house, only 5 remained. Leon. Mira. Sokolov, the demolitions expert. Inez, a freelance tracker with feral instincts. And Father Darius Volker. The priest had insisted on joining the operation. The syndicate hadn't objected. That alone should have concerned Leon. They crossed the stage and passed through the risen curtain into the candlelit corridor. The air changed instantly. It was warmer here. Not by much, but enough to feel intentional. The walls were lined with gilt-framed mirrors. None of them reflected correctly. Leon's image lagged half a second behind his movement. Myra's reflection faced forward even when she turned her head. Inez had no reflection at all. Sokolov swore under his breath. Psychological trickery, Leon said, though the words felt thin. Stay focused. Behind them, the stage went dark. The corridor stretched far longer than the building's exterior dimensions should have allowed. The candles burned with steady, unnatural flames, their wax pristine despite decades of abandonment. Mira adjusted her tablet. There's no signal, no mapping. Spatial geometry doesn't match structural scans. Father Darius walked slowly, rosary wrapped tight around his fingers. His lips moved silently. You knew, Leon said quietly, falling into step beside him. Didn't you? The priest did not look at him. I warned them the relic was not an object. It is a tether. To what? To her. They reached the first door. Polished mahogany. A brass plaque gleamed on its surface. Dressing room A. The waltz drifted faintly through the walls. Leon signaled. Inez moved forward and pressed her ear against the wood. Nothing. She opened it. Inside, the room was immaculate. Fresh roses in a vase. A vanity mirror rimmed in warm bulbs. Costumes hung neatly along one wall, tutus in pristine white. In the center of the room sat a single chair. And on that chair, a small pair of ballet slippers. Red. Still wet. Sokolov stepped inside. This is staged. She wants us disoriented. As if on cue, the mirror lights flickered on. All 5 of them turned toward the reflection. But there were 6 figures staring back. Abigail stood among them. Not in the room. In the glass. She was smiling. Inez spun around, knife raised. The room was empty. When they looked back at the mirror, only their own reflections remained, except Sokolov's. His reflection wasn't moving. It stood rigid, staring forward with an expression of growing horror. Sokolov, Mira whispered. The real Sokolov looked at the mirror. His reflection raised a hand slowly. He did not. The reflected hand pressed flat against the inside of the glass. From within, a crack spiderwebbed outward. Sokolov staggered back. The mirror exploded. Glass did not fall outward. It imploded. Shards pulled inward, dragging Sokolov screaming toward the fractured surface. His fingers clawed at the air as his body bent unnaturally, compressing toward the splintered void. Leon grabbed his arm. For a moment, resistance held. Then something pulled from the other side. Harder. Sokolov's shoulder dislocated with a sickening pop. His scream cut short as his head struck the edge of the broken frame. He was gone. The mirror reformed instantly. Unbroken. Pristine. Only 4 remained. Silence filled the dressing room. Then soft clapping echoed from the corridor. Lovely energy, Abigail's voice chimed. But commitment matters. Leon forced the others out. They returned to the hallway. The mirrors were gone. In their place hung oil paintings. Each depicted a different scene from the massacre in the auditorium minutes earlier, captured from impossible angles. One painting showed Leon's face as he watched the first man die. His expression wasn't tactical. It was afraid. We're not hunting her, Inez muttered. We're inside her. Father Darius stopped walking. This building is no longer architecture. It is memory. A door slammed somewhere ahead. The plaque on the next door read. Orchestra pit. The waltz grew louder. Leon pushed it open. They found themselves not in the pit, but in a grand rehearsal hall. Music stands arranged in careful rows. Sheet music resting on each stand. Mira stepped forward and lifted one page. Her face drained of color. "It's us." Leon took the paper. The notes were arranged into shapes, not musical notation, but patterns forming images. Each page depicted one of them. Inez mid-scream. Sokolov folded inside glass. Leon kneeling. And Mira. Suspended from invisible strings. As he looked up, something brushed the back of his neck. Thin. Taut. He turned slowly. Threads. Dozens of nearly invisible wires descended from the ceiling, attaching themselves to Myra's wrists, ankles, throat. She gasped as her arms jerked upward violently. "Cut them," she cried. Inez slashed at the threads. The knife passed through them like smoke. Myra's body lifted off the floor. Her legs kicked helplessly as the wires tightened. Above them, in the rafters, Abigail appeared, perched like a dancer on a beam, fingers delicately manipulating the threads. "You always wanted control," she said to Mira. "Technology. Surveillance. Power." Mira choked as the thread around her throat constricted. "I prefer analog." With a subtle flick of her wrist, Abigail pulled. Myra's body twisted sharply. There was a sharp crack. Her head lolled at an impossible angle. The threads released. She fell. The music stopped again. 3 left. Abigail dropped lightly from the rafters, landing in front of them. Her ballet dress was no longer white. It shimmered dark crimson under candlelight. "You're improving," she told Leon calmly. "Fear sharpens the mind." Leon raised his weapon. "I don't scare easily." She stepped closer. Unfazed. "I know," she said softly. "That's why you're still alive." Behind her, the rehearsal hall dissolved into darkness. The walls peeled away like theater flats, revealing another corridor. Narrower. Closer. The air thicker. A final brass plaque gleamed ahead. Main stage. Act 2. Father Darius gripped his rosary. "She is not merely killing us," he whispered. "She is rewriting us." Abigail tilted her head. "Yes," she said. "And the story gets better." The floor beneath them shifted. Boards creaked. From somewhere deep below, machinery groaned as if awakening after decades of sleep. The waltz resumed. Faster now. Sharper. Leon felt it in his bones, a rhythm syncing with his pulse. Abigail stepped backward into shadow. "Trust each other," she called sweetly. "It makes betrayal so much more beautiful." The corridor lights dimmed to a deep, pulsing red. And as the door to Act 2 slowly opened, Leon understood something terrible. This wasn't random. This wasn't rage. This was choreography. And Abigail was just getting started. The door to Act 2 opened with the hush of velvet sliding across skin. Leon entered first. The corridor behind them vanished the instant his boots crossed the threshold. No sound of it closing. No slam. Just absence. Inside was not another hall. It was a ballroom. Grand. Intact. Impossible. Crystal chandeliers shimmered overhead, fully restored, casting molten gold across polished marble floors. The decay from before was gone. No dust. No rot. No broken plaster. Everything gleamed as if awaiting nobility. And at the far end, elevated on a shallow dais. A string quartet. For musicians dressed in 19th century formal wear. Pale. Motionless. Their bows lifted in unison. The waltz began again. Leon felt the vibration through his ribs. Inez scanned the room with feral intensity. "We're exposed." Father Darius's voice was tight. "She wants proximity." At the center of the ballroom stood a long banquet table set for 3. Silver cutlery. Crystal glasses. White porcelain plates. 3 chairs. No 4th. Leon noticed it immediately. Abigail's voice drifted down from somewhere unseen. "Dinner," she sang softly. "For my finalists." Inez did not sit. Neither did Leon. Father Darius stepped forward slowly. "This is ritual," he said. "She is constructing narrative hierarchy." Leon glanced at him sharply. "Speak plainly." "She is forcing roles," the priest replied. "Leader. Doubter. Believer. And which am I?" Leon asked. "Not the believer." A soft laugh echoed through the ballroom. Above them, on a balcony overlooking the floor, Abigail appeared. She leaned casually against the railing, chin resting on her folded hands. Her eyes glittered, not wild, not frenzied. Focused. "You're adapting beautifully," she said. "I appreciate effort." The quartet played louder. The chandeliers dimmed slightly, shifting from gold to amber. The 3 plates on the table filled instantly. No hands placed the food. It simply appeared. Raw meat. Still warm. Steam rose from it. Inez stepped back. "This is bait." "No," Father Darius whispered. "It's communion." Leon's patience snapped. "Enough theology." He moved away from the table, scanning the perimeter. The ballroom doors, there were 6, had vanished. Smooth walls replaced them. No seams. No handles. "We break through," Leon said. Inez approached one wall and struck it with the butt of her rifle. The marble rippled. Like water. Her weapon sank halfway into the surface before she yanked it free. The quartet did not miss a note. Abigail's head tilted slightly. "Violence is so pedestrian," she murmured. Suddenly the music stopped. The musicians rose slowly from their seats. Their movements were stiff. Unnatural. Their skin hung too loosely over their faces. As they stepped into the light, Leon saw the truth. They were not musicians. They were the men from the auditorium. Skin pale. Eyes hollow. Throat still marked by Abigail's precision. Sokolov's neck bent at the same impossible angle as before. They raised their bows again. And began to play without instruments. The sound came anyway. Shrill. Piercing. Leon fired. Bullets struck flesh. The bodies jerked but did not fall. They advanced. Inez moved like lightning, slicing through one of them. The blade passed cleanly through his torso. But he kept walking. Father Darius began chanting under his breath, louder now, Latin spilling into the music. Abigail watched with interest. "You still think this is about faith?" she asked him. The priest did not stop. The dead musicians reached them. Cold hands seized Leon's arms. He slammed one against the marble floor. The skull cracked open. No blood spilled. Only black dust. Inez decapitated another. Its head rolled across the floor, dissolving mid-spin. Father Darius pressed his rosary against Sokolov's forehead. Requiem aeternam. The corpse screamed. A high, animal shriek that shattered 2 chandeliers overhead. Glass rained down. Leon shoved Darius aside as shards embedded in the marble. When the dust settled, the ballroom was empty. No table. No quartet. No chandeliers. Only 3 of them standing in a vast circular chamber. The walls were covered in mirrors again. But this time, the reflections were accurate. Too accurate. Leon saw himself breathing hard. Inez saw the tremor in her fingers. Father Darius saw sweat beading at his temples. Then the reflections began to move independently. Leon's reflection lowered its weapon. Inez's reflection turned toward Leon. Darius's reflection smiled. The real Darius did not. Trust each other, Abigail's voice whispered from everywhere. Or don't. Leon felt it then. The shift. The subtle fracture. Inez looked at him, not as ally, but as variable. You knew more than you said, she accused quietly. Leon's jaw tightened. We all signed the same contract. No, she said. You vetted it. A beat. The mirrors flickered. In one reflection, Leon stood alone. In another, Inez aimed her blade at his throat. In a third, Father Darius knelt before Abigail willingly. She's inside us, Darius whispered. Amplifying suspicion. Or revealing it, Abigail corrected gently. Her reflection appeared in every mirror at once. Not behind them. Beside them. She stepped through the glass like mist parting. The mirrors did not break. They accepted her. She walked slowly around the trio, barefoot steps silent. I don't need to kill you, she said softly. You'll do that yourselves. Leon felt something unfamiliar. Not fear. Doubt. He turned to Inez. You think I brought you here to die? I think you were promised more if we didn't make it out. The accusation hung heavy. Father Darius closed his eyes. This is the true act, he murmured. Division. Abigail stopped in front of Leon. You don't believe in monsters, she said. But you believe in leverage. She reached up, brushing a finger lightly against his chest. His body locked instantly. Paralyzed. Not pain. Control. She turned to Inez. You trust instinct, she said. So trust it. Inez hesitated. Leon could not move. Could not speak. All he could do was watch as Abigail stepped back into shadow. The mirrors began to crack, not outward, but inward. Thin fractures racing like veins. From each mirror emerged a duplicate. Leon's reflection stepped forward, weapon raised. Inez's duplicate lunged first. Steel met steel. The chamber erupted into chaos as each of them faced themselves. Perfectly matched. Every movement anticipated. Every weakness mirrored. Father Darius confronted his double. His reflection did not chant. It smiled. And in that smile was something far older than faith. As Leon struggled against his duplicate, he understood the precision of it. Abigail wasn't hunting them physically. She was isolating fault lines. Testing loyalty. Stripping away cohesion. Across the chamber, Inez locked blades with herself, teeth bared. You don't survive this, her duplicate hissed. Neither do you, she growled back. Above them, unseen but present, Abigail's voice floated down like falling ash. Act 2, she whispered, satisfied. Trust collapses. The cracks in the mirrors widened. The walls trembled. And somewhere deep within the opera house, machinery groaned again, resetting the stage. Preparing the next scene. Because Abigail did not rush. She curated. And the encore had only just begun. Leon learned something in the first 10 seconds of fighting himself. His reflection wasn't improvising. It was anticipating. Every strike he initiated, the duplicate countered before impact. When Leon shifted left, it was already there. When he feinted high, it ducked low. The rhythm was flawless, like dancing with a partner who knew the choreography better than he did. Because it did. Across the chamber, Inez's blade sparked against its twin in a blur of metallic shrieks. Father Darius staggered backward as his double advanced without haste, lips curved in that patient, blasphemous smile. The mirrors lining the circular chamber continued to fracture inward, spiderwebbing in slow, deliberate patterns. The air vibrated faintly, like a theater before curtain rise. Leon shifted tactics. He stopped attacking. His duplicate did not. It lunged instantly, knife slashing across Leon's forearm. Warm blood spilled. So it wasn't just mimicry. It was adaptation. You see. Abigail's voice drifted from nowhere and everywhere. You only know how to respond to force. Leon pivoted hard, slamming his shoulder into the duplicate's chest. They crashed to the floor together. For a brief moment, they were locked, face to identical face. The eyes staring back at him weren't empty. They were disappointed. You don't believe in anything, the duplicate whispered. Leon headbutted it. Bone cracked. But so did his own brow. Pain flared in perfect symmetry. Across the chamber, Inez screamed. Leon looked up in time to see her duplicate disarm her. The knife skidded across the marble. The reflection pinned her wrist, pressing the blade toward her throat. Instinct fails when it's predictable, the duplicate hissed. Inez spat blood into its face. Then she did something unexpected. She went limp. Her body slackened completely. The duplicate hesitated, only for half a second. That was enough. Inez twisted violently, using the reflection's weight against it. They rolled, and she drove the blade upward beneath its jaw. The duplicate convulsed. For a heartbeat, they were frozen together. Then the reflection dissolved into black dust, collapsing in on itself like burned film. The mirror directly behind them shattered outward this time. A new corridor revealed itself. But Inez didn't celebrate. She stared at the blade in her hand. It was coated in her own blood. Leon's duplicate slammed him into a column. You don't change, it said calmly. You endure. Leon's breathing grew ragged. It was right. He didn't adapt. He absorbed. Survived. Outlasted. That was his strength. And his flaw. Across the chamber, Father Darius fell to his knees. His double loomed over him. You hide behind ritual, the reflection said softly. But you doubt. The priest trembled. I have always doubted, he whispered. The reflection paused. You question him. Yes. The smile on the duplicate's face faltered slightly. Darius lifted his eyes. I question everything, he said firmly. That is why I still believe. The chamber pulsed. The duplicate's expression cracked, literally. Fractures split across its skin like porcelain under strain. No, it breathed. Yes, Darius said, rising slowly. Faith without doubt is delusion. The reflection shattered violently, disintegrating in a rush of black fragments. Silence fell. Leon was still locked with his double. He saw the shift in its eyes. Not superiority. Recognition. You won't evolve, it told him quietly. No, Leon rasped. Then he did the only thing he had never done in combat. He let go. He released his grip. Dropped his weapon. Stopped fighting. The duplicate froze. Confusion flickered across its face. Leon met its gaze steadily. You're right, he said. The chamber trembled again. A hairline crack appeared along the duplicate's jaw. Leon stepped backward, hands open. I don't believe in monsters, he continued evenly. But I believe in consequences. The duplicate's form began to destabilize. You can't mirror what I choose not to do, Leon finished. The reflection splintered. Collapsed inward. Gone. The circular chamber dissolved like a stage set being struck. The marble floor peeled away. The mirrors fell into darkness without sound. Leon, Inez, and Father Darius found themselves standing in a narrow balcony overlooking the opera's main auditorium once more. But it was transformed. The seats were filled. Every chair occupied. By corpses. Hundreds of them. All seated upright, faces tilted toward the stage. Watching. The stage was illuminated in deep crimson light. Abigail stood center stage. Alone. Applauding slowly. "Bravo," she called up to them. Self-awareness is so rare. Her dress had changed again. No longer a simple ballet gown, it now resembled something regal. Layers of dark tulle fanned outward like coagulated silk. A thin crown of black and silver rested in her hair. "You passed the intermission," she said. "Most don't." Inez's voice was low. "What do you want?" Abigail tilted her head. "Want?" She echoed thoughtfully. "I want the music to stop hurting." The statement hung strangely in the vast auditorium. Leon studied her. This wasn't random slaughter. It was structure. Every room had tested something. Control. Trust. Identity. "You're not just killing us," Father Darius said quietly. "You're selecting." Abigail's eyes flickered with approval. "Yes." "A beat." "For what?" Leon demanded. Her smile faded slightly. "For the final act." The corpses in the seats began to move. Not rising. Not attacking. Just turning their heads, slowly, in unison, toward the balcony where the survivors stood. Their hollow eyes locked onto them. The waltz resumed. But this time it wasn't mechanical. It was sung. Soft voices emerging from dead throats. Perfect harmony. Inez stepped back instinctively. "This isn't about escape," she whispered. "No," Abigail agreed. She lifted one small hand. The balcony beneath them cracked. Stone splintered. "You don't leave before the final bow," she said calmly. The structure gave way. Leon grabbed Inez as the floor collapsed. They fell. Not downward. Sideways. The world twisted violently, gravity shifting mid-plunge. The opera house rotated around them like a spinning set piece. They crashed onto a wooden surface. Hard. When Leon forced his vision to focus, he realized where they were. Backstage. But not abandoned. Alive. Stagehands moved silently around them, faceless figures adjusting ropes, pulling curtains, resetting props. None acknowledged the intruders. At the far end of the backstage corridor stood a single door. Black. Ornate. Gold letters engraved across its surface. Final rehearsal. Behind them, the faceless stagehands stopped moving. In eerie unison, they turned their blank heads toward the trio. Abigail's voice echoed gently from the stage beyond. "You've done so well," she said. "Now let's see what you're willing to sacrifice." The door creaked open on its own. Warm light spilled out. And the music swelled into something triumphant. The encore was building. An intermission was over. The black door did not slam. It inhaled. That was the only way Leon could describe the sound, a long, slow intake of breath as it opened wider, revealing a rehearsal studio bathed in amber light. The room was intimate compared to the grand spaces before. Wooden floors. A single mirrored wall. A piano in the corner. Soft light spilling from sconces that should not have had power. It felt almost gentle. Too gentle. Leon stepped inside first. Inez followed, silent and coiled. Father Darius entered last, murmuring something under his breath that no longer sounded entirely like prayer. The door closed behind them without a sound. On the far wall, written in looping script above the mirror. Only one takes the final bow. Inez read it aloud. No, she muttered. No more games. Abigail sat atop the piano. Legs crossed. Watching. She looked smaller here. Younger. Almost fragile. But her eyes were ancient and terribly awake. You misunderstand, she said softly. This isn't a game. It's refinement. Leon's gaze swept the room. You've tested us. Control. Trust. Identity. What now? Abigail slid off the piano, landing lightly on bare feet. Choice. The mirror behind them shimmered. Their reflections appeared, normal at first. Then the glass rippled. 3 new images formed beside them. Leon saw himself walking out of the opera house alone. Inez's reflection showed her kneeling before Abigail, alive but hollow-eyed. Father Darius's reflection depicted him lying dead at the center of the stage, arms spread like a martyr. Abigail watched their faces carefully. The syndicate sent you for the relic, she said. But the relic is not an object. Father Darius nodded faintly. It's her. Yes, Abigail said, smiling slightly. And they want me contained. Leon's jaw tightened. Contained how? Her eyes flicked toward the piano. On its lid now sat a black music box. Intricate. Carved with scenes of dancers frozen mid-movement. The veil relic. Wind it, she said. No one moved. Abigail's tone remained soft. Wind it, and I return to sleep. The house closes. The syndicate collects what remains of you and calls it success. And if we don't? Inez asked. Abigail's smile widened, just enough to reveal the tips of her fangs. Then the house opens. The mirrored wall flickered again. They saw cities. Crowds. Concert halls. Subways. Places with stages. Places with audiences. Leon understood. You're tethered here, he said slowly. For now, Abigail replied. The piano began to play by itself, soft, uncertain notes. Only one of you can wind it, she continued. And only one of you will survive the binding. Silence thickened the room. Inez's eyes shifted toward Leon. You knew they wanted her alive, she said quietly. Yes, Leon admitted. And you still took the contract. Yes. Why? Leon didn't hesitate. Because if someone was going to walk in here, I wanted it to be people who could fight. Abigail studied him. That's almost noble. Father Darius stepped forward. This is not about nobility, he said. It's about containment of harm. Abigail's gaze flicked to him. You think I am harm. I think you are unbound trauma, he replied evenly. The temperature in the room dropped. The piano keys pressed harder, discordant now. Abigail's expression shifted, not rage, not frenzy. Something sharper. You think I didn't learn control, she asked softly. The mirrors changed again. They showed glimpses, brief and fragmented. A child alone in darkness. Hands reaching. Voices demanding perfection. A stage lit too bright. Applause that felt like knives. The images vanished instantly. Leon felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Not sympathy. Understanding. You were shaped, he said quietly. I was sharpened, Abigail corrected. The music box clicked softly on the piano, as if impatient. Inez stepped closer to it. If one of us wins it, she said, the rest walk out. Yes, Abigail said. And you go back into it? For a time. How long? Abigail tilted her head. Until someone else wants power. Father Darius closed his eyes briefly. This will never end, he murmured. Abigail's gaze hardened. Everything ends, she said. That's the beauty of it. Leon moved toward the piano. Inez grabbed his arm. You can't trust her. I don't, he said. He looked at the music box. Small. Deceptive. If this is containment, he said, then it has to be voluntary. Abigail nodded slowly. Yes. And it has to be someone she can't control. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You think you qualify? Leon met her gaze steadily. You've tested me for 4 acts. A long pause. The piano stopped. Silence. Father Darius stepped forward suddenly. No. Both Leon and Inez turned. The priest's face was pale but resolute. I came here knowing what this was, Darius said quietly. I am not here to survive. Leon shook his head. This isn't martyrdom. No, Darius agreed. It's balance. He approached the piano slowly. Abigail watched him with careful curiosity. You doubt, she reminded him. Yes, he said. But doubt is not surrender. He placed his hand on the music box. The air tightened around them. Leon stepped forward. If this kills you. It will, Darius said calmly. He looked at Abigail. You are not evil, he said. But you are unfinished. For the first time, something uncertain flickered in her expression. Darius began to wind the key. The sound was delicate. Click. 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 The mirrors cracked violently. Abigail staggered backward as if struck. The room darkened. You choose him, she whispered, not angry. Hurt. Leon realized then. This wasn't just about power. It was about recognition. Darius continued winding. Blood began to seep from beneath his fingernails. The music box lid snapped open. Inside was nothing. Just darkness. A pull began, subtle at first, then stronger. Abigail's body flickered. Her edges blurred. You think this ends me? She asked softly. No, Darius replied, voice straining. I think it pauses you. The suction intensified. The stagehands beyond the walls began to scream, faceless mouths opening in silent agony. Abigail's gaze locked onto Leon one final time. You would have been interesting, she said. Then she dissolved into smoke and light, pulled toward the music box. The lid slammed shut. The room went still. Father Darius collapsed to his knees. Leon caught him. The priest's pulse fluttered weakly. Did it work? Inez whispered. The opera house trembled. The walls lost their luster. The warm light faded into gray decay. The rehearsal room rotted before their eyes. The door behind them creaked open. Cold night air seeped in. Leon looked down at the music box in Darius's bloodied hands. Silent. Still. Outside, sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Inez exhaled shakily. It's over. Leon didn't answer. Because as he helped carry Father Darius toward the exit, he felt it. Faint. Rhythmic. From within the closed music box. A single, delicate note. The waltz. Beginning again. Father Darius died before they reached the street. Not violently. Not theatrically. His breathing simply thinned, like a fading echo in a cathedral, until there was nothing left to hear. Leon felt the moment it happened. A subtle release in the priest's weight. No final speech. No absolution. Just silence. Outside, Prague's night air was wet and metallic. Police sirens wailed somewhere distant but uncertain, as if unsure where to go. The opera house behind them looked exactly as it had when they arrived, crumbling, lifeless, inert. As if none of it had happened. Inez stood beneath the fractured facade, staring at the black music box in Leon's hands. It was small. Unremarkable. Blood still streaked along its carved edges. "Is she in there?" Inez asked quietly. Leon didn't answer immediately. He was listening. At first there was nothing. Then. Faint. Measured. 3 soft notes. The beginning of the waltz. He snapped the box shut tighter, though it had never opened. "She's contained," he said finally. Inez didn't look convinced. Black SUVs turned the corner. Right on schedule. The syndicate's recovery team. Leon's jaw tightened. "They move fast," Inez muttered. "They were always close," he replied. 4 suited figures exited the lead vehicle. No tactical gear. No visible weapons. Their calm was more unsettling than any rifle. The woman leading them wore a charcoal coat and thin leather gloves. Her eyes were sharp, appraising. "Mr. Varga," she said evenly. "You survived." "Barely," Leon replied. Her gaze flicked to Darius's body, then to Inez, then finally to the music box. "And the asset?" Leon held it up. Her eyes softened, not emotionally. Strategically. "Excellent," she said. Inez stepped closer to Leon. "You're not giving it to them," she said under her breath. "We had a contract," Leon replied. "Contracts don't cover this." The woman extended her gloved hand. "If you would." Leon hesitated. Not because he doubted the agreement. Because he now understood its flaw. "You said containment," he said carefully. "Not control." The woman's expression didn't change. "Containment is control." A faint vibration tickled Leon's palm. The music box grew warmer. The woman's gaze sharpened. "Is there a problem?" The night shifted. Subtle. Like a building exhaling. Behind them, the opera house emitted a low groan. Not structural. Organic. Inez turned slowly. The windows, once dark, now glowed faintly from within. Golden light. The same warm rehearsal light. Leon's grip tightened on the box. "You said she was tethered to the house," he said quietly. "She was," the woman replied. "Was." The music box vibrated again. Stronger. A thin crack appeared along its carved lid. The woman's composure flickered for the first time. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," Leon said. Inside the opera house, music swelled. Not faint. Not distant. Full orchestration. Strings. Piano. Choir. The doors of the building creaked open slowly behind them. The recovery team turned. From within the opera house lobby, figures emerged. Not faceless stagehands. Not corpses. People. Well-dressed. Elegant. Smiling. Men and women in evening attire, descending the marble steps as though attending a gala. Their eyes were luminous. Unblinking. The woman stepped back instinctively. "This wasn't the agreement," she said sharply. Leon stared at the music box. The crack widened. "You tried to reduce her," he said quietly. "To an object." The lid snapped open violently. Darkness didn't spill out. Light did. Blinding. The suited operatives screamed as the light struck them, their bodies collapsing inward like paper drawn into flame. The elegant figures on the steps began to clap. Slow. Measured. Familiar. Inez shielded her eyes. Leon. From the center of the glowing doorway, Abigail stepped forward. Not childlike now. Not small. She appeared older, not aged, but ascended. Her ballet dress had transformed into something vast and layered, flowing behind her like living shadow stitched with starlight. A crown of black silver arced across her brow. Her eyes found Leon instantly. You misunderstood the tether, she said softly. Leon stared at her. You were never bound to the house. She smiled faintly. I was bound to performance. The opera house behind her was no longer decaying. It shimmered, restored, magnificent, alive. Music poured from it like breath. You gave them hope, she continued gently. Containment. Control. Her gaze shifted briefly to Darius's body. He gave me pause. For the first time, something like respect flickered across her features. The syndicate's vehicles began to lift slightly off the pavement, metal groaning as gravity twisted. The remaining operatives tried to flee. The ground beneath them softened like wet clay. They sank screaming. Leon stood still. He did not reach for a weapon. Abigail approached him slowly. You let go, she said. Yes. You didn't try to dominate me. No. A beat. That's why you're still here. Inez moved beside him. And me, she demanded. Abigail's gaze flicked to her. You adapt, she said. You're useful. The music softened. Shifted. From waltz to something slower. More deliberate. What do you want? Leon asked quietly. Abigail looked out across the city skyline. Lights twinkled in apartment windows. Cars moved. Life continued. I don't want to hide in relics, she said. I don't want to be summoned by greedy men. She turned back to him. I want an audience. Leon felt the weight of that statement. This doesn't end with the opera house, he said. No, Abigail agreed. This is intermission. The restored opera house behind her began to fade, its brilliance dissolving into the night until only the crumbling ruin remained. The elegant figures vanished. The music thinned to a single violin. Abigail stepped backward toward the doorway. I won't touch this city, she said softly. Not tonight. Why? Inez asked. Abigail's eyes never left Leon's. Because he understands the rules. The doorway darkened. Her form began to dissolve into fine, drifting particles of light. But the performance continues, she whispered. The final note lingered in the air. Then silence. The SUVs were gone. The suited operatives, gone. Only Leon, Inez, and Father Darius's body remained on the empty street. The opera house stood dark and broken once more. As if it had always been. Inez exhaled slowly. She let us live. Leon stared at the silent building. No, he said quietly. He could still feel it. Not inside the box. Not inside the walls. Out there. Expanding. She changed venues. Far above them, in a high apartment window across the square, a faint silhouette stood behind glass. Small. Still. Watching. And somewhere in the distance, carried faintly on the wind. The waltz began again. 3 weeks later, the invitations went out. They weren't printed on paper. They appeared. In inboxes that had never been shared. On desks in locked offices. Projected briefly across phone screens before vanishing. A single line. The performance resumes. Opening night. No location. No time. Just a black emblem beneath the words, a stylized music box. Leon received his at 2:13 a.m. He was awake when it happened. He hadn't slept properly since Prague. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard it. 3 soft notes. The beginning of the waltz. Inez was already there when he reached the abandoned theater downtown. Not Europe. Not historic. American. Large enough to matter. Small enough to control. Its marquee flickered weakly, letters rearranging themselves intermittently until they stabilized. Encore in blood. Inez stood beneath it, jaw tight. You got it too, she said. Yes. They didn't speak about how they knew this wasn't coincidence. Or trap. Or random. This was selection. The front doors stood open. Inside, the lobby lights glowed warmly. Plush carpet. Restored gold trim. The scent of polished wood and fresh flowers. No dust. No decay. This wasn't an abandoned structure being animated. This was a new venue. Built. Curated. On the far wall hung framed photographs. Leon stepped closer. Each image depicted a public tragedy from the past month. A warehouse fire in Berlin. A private gala collapse in Dubai. An underground auction raid in Sao Paulo. In every photo, if you looked closely, there she was. Small. Watching. Inez swallowed. She's scaling. Yes. The auditorium doors opened slowly. Music drifted out. Not the waltz. Something grander. An orchestral swell rich with anticipation. They entered together. The theater was full. Hundreds seated in velvet chairs. Men and women in evening wear. Still. Silent. Watching the stage. Leon's stomach tightened. Every face was familiar. Politicians. Syndicate financiers. Black market brokers. Arms dealers. Power brokers who thrived in shadow. All the ones who had tried to own her. They sat upright, eyes open. Unmoving. Alive, but suspended. The stage curtain was drawn. A spotlight ignited. The curtain rose. Abigail stood center stage. Transformed. No longer childlike. No longer merely regal. She looked ageless. Her dress flowed like liquid night stitched with faint constellations. The crown upon her head gleamed darker, sharper. Her presence bent the air around her. She smiled when she saw Leon. You came. You sent an invitation, he replied evenly. I appreciate consistency. The audience remained still. Inez scanned the exits. There were none. You said you wouldn't touch this city, Leon said. I haven't, Abigail replied. Not indiscriminately. She gestured lightly toward the seated crowd. They asked for ownership, she said. For leverage. For containment. Her eyes hardened slightly. So I gave them front row seats. The orchestra pit below the stage filled itself with shadowed musicians. They began to play. The original waltz returned, stronger now, layered with strings and percussion. Leon stepped closer to the stage. What is this? He asked. Abigail's expression softened faintly. Accountability. The audience began to move. Not violently. Not chaotically. Their hands lifted in unison. Slowly. Mechanically. They began to clap. Not by choice. The sound was hollow. Desperate. Release them, Inez demanded. Abigail tilted her head. They are released, she said calmly. From illusion. The clapping grew faster. Their palms struck harder. Skin split. Blood darkened white gloves and silk cuffs. But they did not stop. They wanted spectacle, Abigail continued softly. They wanted to package terror and sell it. Her gaze shifted back to Leon. I am not a commodity. The music intensified. The clapping became frantic. The audience's hands blurred as they struck together again and again, bone cracking beneath skin. Leon felt the weight of the moment. You could kill them, he said. Yes. You could burn this city. Yes. A pause. But you didn't. Abigail stepped forward to the edge of the stage. Her eyes met his fully. You understood something, she said quietly. Performance requires consent. The orchestra cut abruptly. The clapping stopped. The audience froze mid-motion. Hands suspended inches apart. Blood dripping onto velvet seats. Abigail lifted one hand gently. The suspended figures exhaled in unison. And collapsed. Not dead. Unconscious. Freed. The lights in the theater brightened. Warm. Natural. The grandeur faded slightly, revealing the mundane architecture beneath. Abigail descended from the stage. Her presence no longer bent the air. She looked smaller again. Not weak. Contained. You're changing the rules, Leon said. Yes. Why? She looked toward the silent audience. Because endless slaughter is predictable. A faint smile touched her lips. And I despise repetition. Inez studied her carefully. So what now? Abigail turned back toward the stage. The spotlight flickered once more. One final act. The music box emblem appeared above the stage, projected in black. I will perform, she said calmly. But I will choose the audience. And if someone tries to bind you again? Leon asked. Her eyes flashed briefly. They won't survive Act 1. She stepped backward onto the stage. The orchestra resumed, soft, restrained. I won't hunt the innocent, she said. But I will not hide. Her gaze locked onto Leon one last time. You understand consequence, she said. That makes you interesting. The curtain began to fall slowly. You're not our enemy, Inez said quietly. Abigail smiled faintly. No, she agreed. The curtain closed. The lights snapped off. Silence. When they came back on, the stage was empty. The orchestra pit was gone. The audience stirred slowly, confused but alive. No blood remained on their hands. No memory in their eyes. Just disorientation. Leon stood still, staring at the empty stage. She didn't end it, Inez said. No, he replied. High above, in the theater's highest balcony, a small silhouette stood briefly in shadow. Watching. Then gone. Outside, the marquee flickered once more before going dark. Across the city, somewhere unseen, a faint melody drifted through open windows. Not violent. Not frantic. Measured. Deliberate. The performance wasn't over. It had simply evolved. And somewhere, in a theater not yet chosen, Abigail waited for the next curtain to rise. No one would leave before the final bow.